Yeah, we're live. It's morning time, 9:45. Everybody wake up, get your projects done. There's your project morning motivational speech. So make sure you're getting stuff done every day, every day, or at least planning for the weekend, buy stuff, do it, whatever you got to do to get stuff going and get your projects done. Today we're going to talk about this morning. I want to talk about the FE that I have in the thumbnail, and I did test it a long time ago. And unfortunately, I don't think I have everything that I need to do a video on it. I don't think I have all of the photos or all. I think I have the dyno results, but I don't think I have all the photos that I need. I'm still digging through stuff to try to find everything. A lot of stuff was lost when I lost my uh, hard drives long ago. Unfortunately, lots and lots of stuff. And so I can't. I have some of what I need, but not all of what I need to make a reasonable video on some of this testing. But it's very cool. This particular one was more than just an FE. It was an all aluminum one, and it was a stroker. It was like 482 cubic inches, if I remember right. And it had ported aluminum heads and a big cam. And I think Robert Pond did this one. And then we were testing this type of stack injection on it. And it was very cool because all of the injectors were hidden inside. They look like Weber carburetors, like would have run on these Cobras way back in the day. So there's two questions. One is on the stack injection. Normally we see these because I've run a lot of these in doing testing for this company, but a lot of times the stack injection that we see is straight up and down, like on the Windsors. They have cross ram style manifolds, which are different, obviously, but most of these are straight up and down. The Chevy is like that. The Ford is like that. At least the small block Ford, the 302, 289, 351 Windsor stuff. The FE is canted. You can see they're kind of aimed toward the center a little bit. So what do you guys think? Does that add power? That's actually going to be our poll for today. Does the side cant on the FE stack injection help flow and power? We'll see what people say. One thing we do know is that particular stack injection, especially after because the company was using their own fuel injection, the throttle bodies, if you will, with the fuel injectors in it, but they didn't do their own intake manifold. So they're using probably Blue Thunder and other versions of the castings of these intake manifolds. And the intake manifolds, a lot of these castings were based off the original stuff from way back in the day. And unfortunately, those were, when they were done, when the molds were done for these, the castings were done to fit basically stock kind of cylinder heads, and they did not flow very well. I don't know particularly. I don't remember particularly on the FE. I just remember on the 302 and the 351 stuff that there's a pretty good bit of porting, because as you can see, we're changing direction from coming straight down on the FE or on the 302 and 351 stuff to having to go into having to turn to go into an angle. We're also changing shape at the same time. We're going from a round port into a rectangular port. So there's an awful lot going on in a relatively short distance. And then, porting usually helps. And we did that. We did some back-to-back testing with ported versions and versus as-cast versions. And there was definitely power to be had. So we know if because we could take on the 302 and 351 base stuff, they have really good heads available for those. So you could put airflow research heads or trick flow heads or Dart, good ported heads that were way better than the stuff that they had back in the 60s. So even a ported 289 head was not going to do what a modern head does. So you have all of that additional head flow, but then the intake is restrictive. Even if you have the extra flow of back then Weber carburetors or now modern fuel injection, the modern fuel injection, you can have obviously more than enough fuel flow. But if the lower intake itself, even if the carburetors are flowing a lot, and even if they flow more because you've got individual holes, which is beneficial, but if the intake manifold is still hurting things, not as good. But the question for today is, for the poll, is does that cool like gangster lean inward gangster lean on the FE version, does that help flow? Does that help it? Does that help tilt the stacks more toward the center and then change the angle of approach to the port and then help that match up with the angle of the head port? Does that help flow? Does it make the intake manifold therefore maybe better because it has less of a transitional turn to make? What do you guys think about that? I think it looks awesome. Stack injection by itself already has very, very high marks. It's actually one of the things that is as cool as it looks. It's one of the things that disappointed me about the Ford versus Ferrari, which we watched again last night because my wife just loves it. We were running through the channels and it was on. We're like, oh yeah, we got to watch this because Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles were just getting ready to fight in the park. It's one of our favorite scenes when he's deciding to hit him with the can or with the bread, and he hits him with the bread, because if you hit him with a can, you could definitely hurt him. And while they want to fight, they're still kind of best friends, and so you don't want to take the guy out. Although he does later throw the can at him, but Miles uses his Captain America shield, aka the garbage can lid, to defend himself. But the thing that disappointed me about the movie is that they weren't true to their induction systems when they're talking about it. Like Miles comes in and drives in and says, oh, it's still not responsive, and we need to get rid of the vacuum secondary carburetor and go to a double pumper. Okay, all of that's believable. It's probably not believable that they would have been trying a vacuum secondary carburetor for the race car anyway, but a double pumper would be a reasonable upgrade, except that when you could see right behind him in the engine bay, it has stacks on it. Now, I don't know if they were, I can't remember if it was stack injection or if it was stack like Weber's that it had on there, but you shouldn't have that on there if you were not running that, if that car didn't actually have that. And it's pretty easy to go back through the historical documents and go, that car at that time in the development would have had this kind of induction system. And it certainly would have had that kind of induction system if we're talking about that kind of induction system in the car. So just make sure that stuff is right. And there's so much history and documentation and so many smart people around that were involved with that movie that things like that shouldn't get passed up. I know that it's a tech guy complaining about nitpicking a car movie, and it'd be like me complaining about Fast and the Furious, which I don't, because the Fast and the Furious is not a historical document. It's just more for entertainment, and I go in with that. I go in with my eyes open about that, knowing that although again, there's no shortage of even reasonably sharp guys that could help them have the right verbiage and stuff, and talk about the things that they need to talk about, because the vast majority of the audience is not going to know anyways, whether we're a Motegi exhaust or titanium valve springs or whatever. They're not going to know what we're talking about, even if we use the proper language. They won't know that the other stuff is not proper, but it's nice to know that you can use the right language. And the same thing happens with the vast majority of people, but it also includes the real car guy people. So a little bit more effort should be made, because it takes no more effort. They're hiring guys to do that anyway. Why don't they hire guys that could go, oh, nobody would say that. That's not accurate. Here's what you kind of should say. Not that they should tell the writer of the movie what to say, but if you're saying it, at least the guy writing the movie is writing a funny, entertaining movie, but it could also be somewhat accurate. So but the FE thing is very, very cool, and it was a fun test. We ran that FE motor back at the time with a Sidewinder intake manifold, probably, and a single 4-barrel, like an 850 or 950, probably a 950 on that combination, and then ran it with the stack injection. It was quite a bit better with the stack injection, which happened every time we tested that stack injection versus any kind of carbureted intake manifold. The stack injection did better, especially in ported form on the 302 and 351 stuff. And I'm pretty sure that this one on the FE was also ported so that they could try to maximize the airflow, because this particular one was making pretty good power. I think it was 600 plus horsepower. And the stacks, I want to say that they were 48 or 50 millimeter bores in them. So it had fairly good flow, but I don't know if I don't ever remember if we took these out to the limit of what the flow rate was for the individual ports. Because I think we could get to a point where on some of these applications that the intake and the throttle body didn't flow as much as the head did. So at that point, you'd have to start thinking about, bigger blades and stuff. But it's very, very cool. So let's see what you guys got going on this morning. Scrolling. Dark blue shirt guy. Yeah, this is a dark blue. This is not the light blue one. It's long sleeve too because it's cold. Yeah, FEs are definitely cool. Can there be I have no clue option? Yeah, they can. Just guess. Just flip a coin. Do whatever. I think if it makes it a more straight shot to the valves, it would definitely make a difference. The ITBs do sound really good. And they sounded particularly good on a motor that had lots of camshaft in it. I remember we ran, I think it was a 331 Ford Racing crate motor that ran out to 7,000 or more. And on that one, when we put the ITBs on, it was really pretty cool. Those tiny little carbs do the FE no justice. They're not carbs, they're fuel injection. So they actually flow quite a bit more than carburetors do. Each one flowed more than 300 CFM. 8 mini salad bowls. You could have put, these all had radius entry air horns on them, as you can see. Yep, continuity script error. I think you have a typo in the poll and I don't understand it. Does the side, can't. Yeah, they put for some reason, spell check put a can't in the, put an apostrophe in there. I don't know if I can I, let's see if I can, oh no, I can't. It's only asking me to end the poll, but. So just think gangster lean. I think the Nissan 350 and 350Z engines sound awesome. No, they do. Especially with ITBs on them. Lots of Porsche turbo race cars had ITBs. They did. They even from the factory, they did. Richard, am I understanding this correctly? Do the cylinder heads have to come off to remove lifters on the LS3? Yes. What I feel has become a game changer is Ford's fueling system on their 18 Mustangs and newer. The stack of DFI and port will support 500 wheel horsepower and E85 with no upgrades. So why is that a game changer? Chevy has that. Dodge has that. Everybody has that. But E85 does work well on those, and it does work well in the LT Chevys as well. I know a guy who raced at Pikes Peak. He had an engine in his shop, and he ran alcohol with 8 Hillborn injectors on it. Yeah, that sort of Can-Am style mechanical stack injection stuff works good at wide open throttle. Usually doesn't drive around very well. I've seen that YouTuber that put motorcycle ITBs on his Mini Cooper. Sounds pretty cool, but the coolest part to me is that he could 3D print his own intake manifold. It is a nice time right now that you could make your own stuff like that, rather than back in the day you had to be. And this was one of the other things that disappointed me about the Ford versus Ferrari, or that I wish they would have changed a little bit, was Phil Remington, which the actor that did it did a great job. But I think that the part that they wrote, they made him look more like a knucklehead, or as a secondary character. But Remington was responsible for the for the thing being what the thing was. Ken Miles was a really good driver, and he was really good at helping the development of the car. But Remington is the guy that made the stuff. He was the fabricator. He was the real guy, and so he was a magician. And I think he should have gotten more credit. Travis, we did that with 8V VW motors. Oh, the 8 valve stuff put stack injection or side draft stuff on them from the motorcycles. That's good stuff. It looks cool. I had side drafts on my Z, and they definitely look good. my side can't. I don't have any mad mod. Hey, Richard, do you have any experience with Predator carburetors that are popping up more affordable lately? I haven't seen one of those in years, and I don't think I've ever run one on the engine dyno, so I don't have any experience at all. It would be kind of cool. I remember from reading the car magazines way back in the day of guys putting these Predator carburetors on them, but they didn't really take off, and they weren't nearly as popular as the Holly stuff, which obviously is still in business and still selling. Contrary to a recent report, selling thousands and thousands of carburetors and will continue to do so. It was cool to see Cletus win the World Cup with the Steve Morse engine. That was cool. Yeah, Morris knows what he's doing. He's the real deal. Nitrous backfires are violent with stacks. They're even worse with composite intake manifolds because they blow the intake manifold apart. Those Predators look like old Carter thermal quads, except with a metal fuel bowl. I don't remember seeing one up close. I know I saw one or two of them when we were doing stuff for the magazines, like at car shows or whatever. But I've never taken one apart or even looked down the barrel to see what they're like, to see what the blades are like, or the opening is like, or what the mechanics are like inside with the jetting or any of that stuff. I don't think I've even looked at one up close. So our poll is saying that 70% are saying yes, that they think that the angle of attack, the angle of the dangle is important. Richard, are you familiar with Grubworm, the LT1 drag race car? Yeah. And aren't there some other weird carburetors like that too, like the toilet bowl and the what's the big single like monoblade carburetor that somebody has? Beer Hounds, is a Plymouth 383 a big block? To me, it is, because it's a different engine family than the small block Dodges are. For me, are the little ones like the 273, the 318, 340, 360. But a 383 and a 400 are the different big blocks that have more in common with the 440 stuff. Let's see how the angle could matter when we see J-shaped curved intakes work so well. Those are only flowing air, though. It's the tune length that matters. It does. That makes a big difference. The stack length on these definitely made a difference. And I did lots of adjustment with the putting intermediate sections in for the stack length to change the power output. Chrysler B blocks, the OB. It's like an OG, but an OB. Puppet Master's in the house. Puppet Master Blaster. That's a nod to Thunderdome. Rex is in the house. Richard, are you familiar with the Grubworm LT1 Camaro? I am. Except Grubworm is not doing that power with a stock block. He's not using a stock block anymore. Just join. Can someone explain the poll question? If you look at the thumbnail for the intro for this video, the FE motor has canted intake manifold that changes the angle of attack for the throttle body injection going into the manifold. Does that angle help? Does the side cant? Actually, I should have just put angle because spell check put a apostrophe in there for me. Is a Plymouth 383 a roller cam motor? No, it's not. It's a hydraulic flat tappet. Or I don't think that did Dodge make a solid cam version? Did they ever offer a solid lifter version of the 383 motor? Do you think the Summit F303 would be all right in an AFR 205 headed 387 Windsor? It might be a little on the small side, but for a driver, it would be good. Have you seen the Boss 302 Coyote manifold used on the 5.4? Are they doing that with adapters? Just curious why you have never bragged about the Cleveland motor would be the best engine ever. There's no such thing as the best engine ever, so that's why I wouldn't ever say that. I have done lots and lots of stories on the Cleveland. In fact, I have bragged extensively about the 351, the Boss 351 being the most powerful small block that Detroit ever produced. I've said that many times. And that the Boss 302 definitely made more power than the DZ 302. But you saying that it's the best engine ever made is not accurate. I thought that people have mentioned the adapters on the Coyotes or are running the Coyote engine on the 5.4, and that's probably a good. That particular manifold is a good manifold. We know that Coyote manifold works good. Banned from all competition. Yeah, that's just not accurate. You know, the everything else doesn't have to be bad for something to be good. That's the thing that's the takeaway from all of this. I'm a big fan of the Cleveland. I think that they were, especially at the time, if you compare them cylinder head for cylinder head of what was available from Chevrolet in the small block form and what was available from Dodge in the small block form, there's no competition at all. It's not even close. I mean, it's 50 or 60 or 70 CFM. It's a lot. That didn't make them ideal, but it did make them be able to support a lot more power with a stock head. It'd be the equivalent of having a modern LS head now on an old small block. You're correct, Richard. Grubworm is not stock anymore, but held the world record with a 670 with a stock LT1 block and intake even before the GM performance block. That's nothing but good. The stock intake, that intake manifold doesn't hold anything, won't restrict power at all, especially in ported form. It's a very short runner, so it allows you to run lots of RPM. That motor can make lots of power. I don't know what the limit is on the stock. I'm sure he was using a 4-bolt LT1 block. I don't know what the limit is on that block, but I don't think he made 1,800 horsepower with the stock block. But maybe he did. Maybe that's possible. No solid cams in 361, 383, 40, 40, 413, possibly 426 they did. Okay. And they had solid cams in the... Didn't they have solid cams in the small blocks? Did the 340 have a solid cam like the 68 that everybody wants? Was that a solid? My dad had a 69 Roadrunner with a 383, and he said it had a roller in it. Then he put a roller in it. He could have put a solid roller in it, which would have been very common back in the day. But it never came that way from the factory. Clearly, the LS is the best engine ever made. I think there are lots of guys that argue that. There are lots of guys who would argue that the new Coyote is the best Ford ever made. Sorry for beating a dead horse, but I was just looking at the 383 LS test and an LS3 test, and it looks like the LS3 makes more power and torque than the 383 LS. It depends on which one you're talking about. I've made 600 with a 383 before, and I haven't done that with I don't think I've done that with an LS3. Maybe I have. Maybe with the right heads and cam and intake on an LS3, it would go over 4 or go over 600. Cleveland was not banned from NASCAR nor from NHRA. Our Super Stalker still runs Cleveland's today. An LS could never make Cleveland power. Okay. A stock LS3 head flows way more than a Cleveland does. Is measuring the formula for cross section of oval the same as a round cylinder? Just want to make sure. No, it's not going to. The area of a oval is going to be different than it is for a circle. Because on an oval, it depends on which dimension you're taking. Which radius are you using? What's the highest compression ratio? I don't think I've put anything together that's more than 12.5 to 1. I've never tried to do a 15 or 16 to 1. They've run that kind of stuff at West Tech from some of the engine builders when they're doing very specific class things. They're trying to make really lots of NA power. The 273 Commando engine was a solid lifter. Okay. No, the 68 340 was a hotter hydraulic flat tap. Okay. I'm not hip on a lot of the Dodge stuff. The Coyote is the most efficient motor made in the USA ever, possibly the world. That's not even close. Yeah, there's a difference between having an opinion or a desire for something to be true and something actually being true. It's not, there's, like I said, I'm actually a big Cleveland fan. And have said so on lots of videos, and have done provided actual data of the things that I said, which we know were accurate. But that thing doesn't have to be the best thing ever in the world, and everything else has to be bad by comparison. That's just not reality. Richard, would you be interested in testing an active intake manifold? Yeah, they are cool. I've thought about building one that would slide. The actuator was always the difficult part, because I've run lots of them where I think I may have even stood in the dyno and done that, but we couldn't do it on all of them. We wanted to stand in there and just slide one. Oh no, I did that on a carburetor on a single barrel carburetor where we were trying stack length on top of the carburetor and we were trying to move it. But it would be good. It would be good to try it. The only thing that it would do is it would give us multiple lengths to test during the RPM range, but it would be cool. Tell us about stack length. Stack length changes the RPM where the intake wants to make peak power because it changes the reflected wave. Compression ratio and so you want to talk about all those things: compression ratio and detonation. The higher compression can lead to more detonation. I want to see some Oldsmobile tests. Yep. Indy cylinder heads, Hemi versus Coyote. So how is our poll doing? 68% are saying yes, that they think that the angle of the dangle is still important. So you've got a 403 with an Edelbrock intake and a Demon 650 and some headers. Sounds like it needs a cam. There's probably lots of cams for those 403s, right? I mean, Compa's got to have a bunch of cams for those. Have you driven a car that has so much power it scared you? I don't remember being on the track driving something like that. I have had times when situationally I was a little concerned, but not that it had so much power. Because power is fairly easy to modulate. You don't have to just use it all. And that's usually when you get in trouble, is when you are using the power at a time or situation when you shouldn't have been, when you should have been using less power. Oil will cause detonation if engine is close to detonation threshold before the oil. Yep. Oil vapor is not good. I run 848 millimeter ITBs in my 452 cubic inch FE. Best part is the drivability. Good idle with a hot cam. Good. Does converting a stack fuel injection system to electronic make it more streetable in building a Chevy 301, but currently planned with a tunnel ram with small Hollies? Yes and no. The hard part about getting stack injection and getting it to idle is getting all the throttles synced, because they all have to open at exactly the same time at exactly the same rate. It's not critical once you get past like a quarter throttle, but in the very, very low throttle angles, minute changes in the opening rates or the opening amounts really affect your drivability. At wide open throttle, there's no change. You're just, even if all of them are not open the same, it all seems to work fairly well. But getting them all to open at 1% or 2% or 3% is really the key to that. If you can get those to all open right, then doing the tuning part is very easy. I used to be an LS guy, but recently warmed up to Hemi power. They're all good. I mean, there's cool things about every one of them. Using an IX solves the opening problem. You're still going to have variations in airflow with individual cylinders. I don't know how an IX is going to do that. What's a Mach 1 Hemi? I'm not familiar with that. Is that an old school Hemi, like a Gen 2? It comes talking about modern ITV sport bikes come up a lot. Yeah, because they have a really high specific output, and part of the reason that they're doing that is because of their induction system. Set screws and orange Loctite is your friend with FEs. Maybe Sean meant the Mark 1 Hemis. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, turbo coupe. I'm not talking about idle. That usually you can get them to idle, but the transition from idle to throttle is the part that I'm talking about. The first like 3 to 5% of throttle change is the problematic area for ATBs. Mercedes makes the OM606. A lot of people brought that up, but I'm not going to run a diesel in the engine dyno. So we're at 69% saying yes, that they think that the angle will help. I thought that stack fuel injection had a common throttle shaft. They all don't do that. And even if they did, there's still variations. Pontiac, I put this up all the time. Let me see. There's my email address. Yep, side can't. Side can and side can't. So which one of those is better? I think diesel testing would be cool, but mostly because I like turbo stuff. And the diesel stuff is interesting because it's throttled by fuel, and it would be cool to run some of those on the dyno and then run lots of boost and do a big bang on those. But that just won't happen. That's not going to happen at West Tech. Have you read about the Bonneville 170 mile an hour stock Lincoln Mark 8? No. And obviously it's not stock because no Lincoln Mark 8 will go 170 miles an hour with a stock motor in it. So it has something more than that. Yeah, motorcycle technology is awesome. And I think that motorcycle technology benefits from Formula One stuff. I think it goes that direction. I think it goes from Formula One to motorcycles and then down to like regular people. Rex, are you still Rex? Were you talking about runner length? I obviously need to do another runner length thing, a really cool one. Like I want to do it like Kazi did. Yeah, Casey, you don't want to put you don't want to put your GoPed fuel into your regular vehicle. For a high RPM application, which of these cam specs is best? Are these 271 numbers at 50? Or are these 271, 288? Are those advertised numbers, or are those numbers at 50? And the lift is not going to make any difference for RPM, really. Not what you're showing there. If I was trying to make more power, I would have more lift. If you had enough. The question is also, do you have enough intake manifold for that? Do you have the right intake manifold with the right runner length for those cams? They actually lengthened the gearing from 308 down to 2.5 and actually managed speed on a production 4VB headed engine. So a factory Cobra motor makes 300 horsepower. So what did they do to that motor to get it to go that fast? Because a 300 horsepower motor won't go that fast. I have a little bit of experience there. Thanks for all your good work. Happy to help, man. Turbocharged slant 6 blow through carburetor sizing, 400 to 500 horsepower. That's quite a bit. Yeah, on a blow through, obviously you can run a smaller carburetor. I don't know what size blow through carburetors they have for that. Or are they using, if they're using a 4-barrel intake manifold on there, then the thing that I'd be concerned more about the turbo or the carburetor sizing is the fuel distribution in a slant 6. The manifolds are not that great, but a 650 would be more than enough. Slide valve ITBs are cool. Barrel valves are cool. Does anybody know what what's his name? The guy that won the Oliver that won the Nova has worked on Yugos quite a bit, I think. I've been told half-inch lift is all that's needed. All that's needed for what? They're not going to run diesels at West Tech. Not they don't even. I don't even think that they run them on the chassis dyno anymore. Their advertised numbers, actual cam specs are hard to find. A lot of people use them with stock manifolds or ported upper and lower manifolds. I don't think, where does that motor make peak power at now? It's not anywhere near 8,000 RPM, right? So if you're wanting to actually make power there, you need to also change the intake manifold. Just the cams are not going to do that. Mad Mod, that seems like a lot. That seems, if you look back at what Porsche did with their 928 and Al Holbert driving, that car was making more power than that, and they only went 172. So that seems like something's going on there that I'm not aware of. Considering the fact that this is we're talking about stack injection, does this mean you'll be testing FEs in the future? I would like to test FEs. I just don't have any right now. If I was doing a slant 6 to have side draft Webers on it, it would be good to have on a side draft rather than do a blow through carburetor if you had EFI on there and you had port injection, because that way, even if the manifolds, because all the manifolds, the Dodge manifolds, they're all like different runner lengths, and so they're going to want to make power in different RPM ranges. And with a carburetor on there, that becomes even more problematic. Although they seem to work. It frustrates me. They seem to work fairly well from the stock combinations. But if you had them all the same length, it would be better. And if you had the same amount of fuel going to them, it would be better. And then if you blew through that with a turbo or a supercharger, it would be better. The Mark 8 went 182 miles an hour. So GM's LT1 Corvette, which is much more aerodynamic than Lincoln is, made 405 horsepower with an LT5, and it went 180 miles an hour. So with 100 more horsepower and a more aerodynamic chassis, it went 180 miles an hour. And so now with a 300 horsepower motor, that car is going to go that fast? Not with any gearing in the world. That doesn't seem right. Do we know of anybody putting modern GM heads on a 351? No. The the car was turbocharged? Well, that would mean that it's not stock, right? So if it had boost in it, then you could have the 400 horsepower or more that you would need to do that. I understand the frustration with the different length runners on those slant sixes. It is weird. I mean, all of the manifolds. Dulcich recently did a test of a bunch of different intake manifolds, and he did I think he did a stock one and a Super Six, and the a couple of from Australia and Clifford and stuff. And the thing is, they all have the central fuel delivery system for them, and I just think that that's just not the best way to go. It'd be better if you had, like, they came out and you had multiple carburetors. That would be better. Or side drafts on there always look cool. Can't wait for a 13B. That would be good. I would really like to see a 13B. I want to run some kind of, even if it's just a little 12A. I don't care. I just never see rotaries in the wrecking yards, and I want to very badly. Aaron, how often would you change springs? Why would you ever have to change the springs once you put new springs in there? Maybe after a few years, I would check them. The thing that I don't like about the cam is the 629. There's no need to have that much camshaft or that much lift, but like it will work. 116 LSA. Mazda sells crate 13Bs. I gotta imagine that that's not cheap, right? I'm I'm more of a wrecking yard crate engine guy. Do you know anything about the Chrysler Baron Coupe? I remember reading some stuff about that because I think I talked to Ben about that because he's a 2.2 turbo guy, and I think we talked about that a little bit. And they did de-stroke it to probably put it in G because it has to be sub 2 liters to do that. Aaron, your thing is for a blower, so that makes more sense. That is a pretty wide LSA. Even a Renesis would be perfect for a cheap turbo combo. Yeah, you pull crate motors. That's it. People throw them away over dirt cheap coolant seals. I see, and I don't mind taking it apart and repairing it. Although I know Apex seals and stuff now are and the housings are getting expensive. Aaron, are you running lots of RPM with that camshaft? If you're trying to make lots and lots of power with a positive displacement blower, then camshaft will help you do that because you need to make it as efficiently as you need to make as much NA power as possible to add the blower to. But my suspicion is unless you've done lots of stuff to the blower, particularly on the inlet side and porting on it, that how is the drivability and stuff for that camshaft? Ford advanced vehicles in 67 England made several different specs, small blocks. Most of them did 165 miles an hour. They admit it was blueprinted. So I wonder what that means. Somebody was saying it was turbocharged. So was it NA? Was it turbocharged? Was it all stock? I just, having done lots and lots of top speed stuff, that seems odd. Yeah, I don't need a link. You can just, if you tell me what it is. Because an LT1 Corvette was a 300 horsepower Corvette, and it would not go 180 miles an hour. The idea about filling the blocks, adding cement to it, or other things that they use to fill it with, is to add strength to the cylinders and to add strength to the block. I've never done it, but I know racers do it, and they do that in lieu of, it's less expensive than buying another block. I had my parents' 79 Thunderbirds. The Thunderbirds are actually very aero too, especially like the Super Coupes and the Turbo Coupes were actually very aerodynamic. They were likely faster than the Mustang was with the same power output, because I remember Dennis Hilliard brought his out to the Silver State because he thought it would be a bet, and he's right, that it would be a better choice than like the Mustang that I had, given the same power output. And it would be much more aerodynamic, and it's longer on the backside, which is very, very important. A lot of people forget about that part of it. LY6 ported 823 heads, ported LSA blower, massive porting. Okay, good. Yeah, no, then you have the right kind of camshaft in that. And you have it in a Fox body. That's even better. That's perfect. I like to build the world's fastest toaster. That thing's not going to be very aerodynamically stable when you go fast in it. I had one of those for a long time, and it was a fun car, but not very aero. 2 more minutes. We're going to go ahead and close out our poll at 67% saying yes, that they think the angle of the dangle is very important. I mean, I just think it looks cool. Yeah, Dan, some of those cars would be better. I know that when they tried to, the car and driver guys tried to run a Honda S2000, which has an amazing motor in it, obviously. And the car is fairly small. The aero signature is pretty good on it. The problem it has is the rear of the car is terrible. The way that they have they put a hard top on it, and the way that they have the top, it just chops in the backside. It doesn't slope back down to the deck, and that's not what you want. And so what happens is it makes the back end want to lift, which is not what you want when you're going fast. And so we talked to them about that. I'm like, yeah, you need to make a different hood for a roof for that. They're like, what do you mean? I said, well, it needs to be. I said, you don't need to run your your soft top, obviously, which that's a bad idea. Although the Miata one was excellent. I have to say, at 165 miles an hour, the Miata top was like perfect. But I said, you just need to make one. You need to have somebody make one, and they would have to make a cool like window for it too. I said, have one that slopes all the way back to the deck lid. They're like, but why would you do that? I'm like, because you're not going to lift and spin like you did. You have 0.57 on your SRT4. Kicking the tires. I really like your 462 valve videos. Well, you're in luck because that's what I'm working on today. So I wonder why Admiral wasn't here, because he was going to be excited that I have two modular deals that I'm working with. 911s. 911s were not terrible for that, because their slope was pretty good. That's why if you look at the Pontiac NASCAR deals, that the Aero coupes and stuff, that's what they were doing. I mean, you want it to, if you look at an aerodynamic car like these up here, that one up there, you want the airflow to just never come unattached to the vehicle and have it taper all the way back and smoothly exit the back of the vehicle. Frontal area, the drag coefficient, all of those are important. Form drag, there's lots of stuff. Many years ago, I found a video of a Ford 8-stack on a dyno where vapor clouds formed above the stack at RPM. That does happen. You do have standoff. I saw that when I did the injection with the sliding positioning for the injectors in front of the stacks on the Honda way back. We see that too. You see fuel standoff come out of those, and we really saw it when we did that Sonic Ram, the big long cross ram deal that Dodge did. West Tech ran one of those for one of their customers, and you have the carburetors sitting way out there. And as you're going through the RPM, because they were loading this thing down at 2,000 RPM because they were trying to find out where this motor made peak torque, it was down about 2,000 RPM. But you could see while you're running, you could see the fuel standoff fuel coming out of the carburetor, and then the amount that it was coming out would raise and lower, and then it would disappear and then come back. It was really kind of cool. The BOT type, yeah, not terribly aero on that one. But it was kind of cool back when Road and Track or Motor Trend or Car and Drive, one of those guys did the comparison where they did the Porsche 962 versus the Winston Cup car and back in the day. And the Cup car was a lot faster. GM had an aero version of the G bodies, yeah. They had the Grand Prix and the Monte Carlo. Definitely building a flat bottom. We did that on the Civic that I keep showing everybody. We built, because the class we were in allowed and required a belly pan, so we ran a full belly pan on it. It was very cool. Yeah, the Monte Carlo and the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix is even probably more rare than the Monte Carlo, because they usually make lots of Chevrolets and not very many Pontiacs. So if you have one of those, especially with I think that they made those about the time that they had the L69, the HO 305s in them. So that would probably be a valuable car. They did a slant nose Cutlass too. Very cool. The 86 Grand Prix 2+2 Aero Coupe was offered with a 305 cubic inch V8 and a 4-speed automatic transmission. Pontiac said you have produced 1,225 Grand Prix Aero coupes. And like some other NASCAR specials, including the now priced D-winged Dodge Daytona, didn't sell very many of them, and they're becoming a classic. So go out and get your Aero coupe. It's kind of ugly, but obviously cool. The Pontiac didn't have the L69. They didn't offer that. They just had a regular one. Didn't the late 80s NASCARs do over? Yeah, this one went 240. And I don't even know if the NASCAR boys even put a cheater engine in it, like you definitely would have if you were coming to a competition like that. I recently acquired a mid-90s F-250 with a 7.3 Power Stroke. Can you share insights on why a diesel effectively do not have runners and intake manifolds? I don't know why they don't. I can only assume that it's packaging, because runner length still works with a diesel. Mad Mod, you need to not use the word thoughts in your comment. The 80s Daytona. You could run a Daytona at Daytona. I wonder. So in the like Superbirds and the Daytonas, they were running those with Hemis, right? Were they running those with? I mean, how much power were those Hemis making? They had to be more than 500 horsepower, right? I mean, I think the street cars didn't have to have Hemis. I mean, you could get those with 440s in them, right? But I just wonder over 600. Turbocharged diesels overcome the short runners, though tuning the runners would in theory help power production. Yeah, it doesn't. The runner length still works whether it's a diesel and whether it has boosted. That doesn't change anything. I think more it's packaging, and I think that they're able to make the power that they need to make without it, probably. A winged Hellcat, an Aero one. Yeah, because I don't think a modern Hellcat is super Aero. And on that note, it's time to go. Come on, we all got stuff to do. It's morning time. Everybody get out there and get stuff done. Go watch the video. If you haven't seen the video that I put up recently, go watch the latest version. And also check out the 327 versus the 5.3 liter. And then the hooker cast turbo manifold stuff versus the tubular headers. That still seems to be pretty popular. But thank you guys all for showing up, and I will see you all tonight. I got to go get Milo. Milo!